Marathon County Board of Supervisors to order, please. We will start with the pledges of allegiance. Please remain standing. Following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned annual meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 4th Street, Wausau, on Thursday, December 14th at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request everyone, please put your cell phones and any other electronic devices on silent or vibrate as to not be an interruption to the meeting, and I thank you for your compliance. And we'll proceed to roll call, and I'd ask all the county board members to sign in, please. Thank you. And I would like to welcome all of the visitors that we have with us this evening, including the viewing audience, and thank you for your interest in county government. And we will proceed to public comment. We do have two individuals who have signed up for public comment, and they will be granted time if they will come up to the microphone on the floor and face the chair and provide your public comment to the chair and the board. So first we have Reed Rayom. Reed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As this board knows, I am Reed Rayom, and I am a current trustee and the current vice president of the library board. My address is in the packet that was distributed for this meeting, and I wanted to take the opportunity to speak at public comment, given that my reappointment to the library board is on the agenda for your meeting tonight. I also wanted to be here with you tonight as you vote on my appointment to demonstrate my commitment to my role on the library board. I trust that all supervisors have had and that they have all taken the opportunity to review the materials that I submitted, which were included in the packet. Those materials include a letter from me requesting reappointment, a current copy of my resume, and letters of recommendation in support of my reappointment from Wisconsin State Representative Pat Snyder and Marla Sepnaski, the director of the Wisconsin Valley Library Service. I now ask for the support of this board, the very same board that unanimously appointed me to the library board just last year. I ask that this board allow me to continue to serve on the library board, now for a full term. As I mentioned in my letter, ever since my appointment, I have attended, in person, every meeting of the library board and every meeting of every library committee to which I was appointed. I have also attended meetings of this board and various county committees in my role as a trustee to observe and advocate for the library. I look forward to continuing to be of service to the library and the county, and I ask this board to support my reappointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Next, we have the president of NTC, Miss Dr. Jeannie Warden. Dr. Warden, please.
Good evening, and thank you for your time tonight. As you stated, I am Dr. Jeannie Warden, president of North Central Technical College. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak in favor of the Regional Forensic Science Center, which I know is on the agenda later today. I want to start by highlighting the important educational components that comes with this center, a center that really does not exist elsewhere. We will bring together NTC students, the Medical College of Wisconsin, UW-Stevens Point, and our K-12 partners to create educational pathways beginning at the high school level to support the workforce needs in forensic science, pathology, public safety, law enforcement, healthcare, district attorneys, coroners, medical examiners, medical service providers, and funeral directors. By working collaboratively and sharing resources, we can establish high-demand educational pathways to meet the local workforce needs through access to the new state-of-the-art Regional Forensic Science Center. Students in numerous program areas and throughout those institutions will have hands-on, real-world learning together, real-world experience learning together in one space, replicating the work environment. Students will have access to tissue and other donations, making them invaluable resources in the community. Right now, students from the Medical College of Wisconsin travel to Milwaukee to observe autopsies, and sometimes those get canceled or there are no cases at that time when they go there. One of my goals and the goals of the other educational partners is to keep our students local in the community by providing educational opportunities from continuing education to associate degrees to bachelor degrees, master degree, and doctoral level. That's why these educational partners are working together. We will be able to retain and attract new learners to the community, as again, this will be a one-of-a-kind space. NTC will be providing the land to Marathon County for the Regional Forensic Science Center through a purchase agreement. The proceeds from the sale will 100% be directed into the IT infrastructure for the Regional Forensic Science Center to be used by all the partners. NTC is committed to providing the custodial, grass, snow maintenance, and IT services to the center. We have that expertise, we have that staff on campus, and it makes sense from a taxpayer perspective to share resources. We estimate the annual value of that support to be $40,000 per year. In addition, NTC is located right off the highway for easy access, and the building will be located right next to NTC's Emergency Services Training Center. Again, we can share resources for the betterment of the community. NTC has had a long partnership experience with Marathon County, and we're looking forward to working together on this project. I leave you with these words. This project is so much more than a morgue. It's a center of excellence in education that does not exist elsewhere, and NTC is proud to be a partner in this important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warden. And that concludes our public comment for this evening, and we will move on to item B, educational presentations and/or reports, and we will start with standing committee chairpersons or designees. Any standing committee chairpersons or designees wish to provide a presentation or report to the board? Supervisor Overbeck.
Thank you, Chair. This is not in regard to a standing committee, but the task force for the TIF study. What we would like to do is give each supervisor a link to a manual that was been recommended by the Department of Revenue. It's called a Tax Increment Financing Manual over the next month. We'll send this to you. It has a lot of answers to a lot of questions regarding TIF. And it's basically the guidelines looking at Joint Review Board, what the responsibilities, the history of TIF. But this was recommended even by the Department of Revenue when we asked to have one of their representatives sent up to us to give us a presentation. They recommended that we go over this. This has been a guideline for the task force for the last few months. So what we'd like to do is give this to you as a link that you can refer to before the next educational meeting in January, in which we plan on making a presentation and answering questions regarding that. This will shorten the time frame or the time required to go over that. So that will be the first step, and then we'll move into policy discussions after that within our committee. So that, if that's acceptable, we'd like to do that. That will be coming to you in the next week or so. And then we'll go from there for the January meeting for a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee chairpersons or designees? Okay. We will move on to consent agenda items C9 through items C14B. What is your pleasure? Supervisor Sandalski.
Thank you, Chairman. I got two requests. I would like to, first, I'd like to pull the C12E. I'd like to get that separated. I mean, I'd like to get it pulled off to get a separate vote on it.
C12C, or E, excuse me, is removed from the consent agenda.
And then my second one is I'd like to make a motion to split that to get a separate vote.
That motion would not be in order at this point. We'll take that when that item comes back up after the consent agenda item has been dispensed with.
Okay.
There's a motion by Supervisor Langenhan and a second by Supervisor Zhang. And we have
can that
Supervisor
possibly-
Straub.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to remove from the consent agenda item 13A for a separate review.
13A has been pulled. Supervisor Shafinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things. One, I would like to have item C12A, the appointment for the Wisconsin Valley Library Service Board, removed from the consent agenda.
That's one already been pulled, sir.
No, that was 12E.
But,
Straub just did 12. No, he did 13A.
excuse me, he did 13A? Was Supervisor Straub, was it 13A? I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, 12A has also been removed.
And then also, how can there be a motion when none of the board has heard any motion being brought forward?
The motion was made electronically by Supervisor Langenhan and seconded electronically by Supervisor Zhang.
Did anyone else hear this motion in this council chamber?
No, it's not a verbal motion.
I'll have Corp Counsel respond.
Right. So we're not at the educational meeting. We're at the voting meeting tonight. So using open meetings as we have this term, the motions and the seconds are made through the electronic means. So the motion and the second were made electronically. That brings the consent agenda to the floor with the items that have been removed as requested, removed to be voted on separately.
Did you have any additional comments, Supervisor Shafinsky?
Yes, it appears that the motion was made before supervisors were done speaking in the building. So the motion was registered, showing electronically before Supervisor Straub made his request, before I made mine. So I'm sorry, I don't see how that's correct parliamentary procedure or Robert's Rule of Order. I have a serious problem with that.
I'll defer to Corp Counsel.
So regarding the consent agenda is voted on as a group with consent of the board. However, if anyone at any time, either before the consent agenda is moved to the floor or after it is moved to the floor, asks that an item be removed for a separate debate, that request is in order. It only has to be made by one supervisor, and then those items are voted on separately. So we're at the point now where, yes, the motion and the second were made to move the consent agenda to the floor. However, each of the requests to pull items are in order. Those will all be voted on separately. And they're taken in the order that they're made electronically here.
And I've stated that all three of the requests to have separated items 12A, 12E, and 13A have been granted, and they will be voted on separately. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda, understanding that items 12A, 12E, and 13A have been removed and will be voted separately? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote on the consent agenda items 9C9 through 14B, excluding 12A, the Wisconsin Valley Library Service Board, 12E, the Marathon County Library Board, and 13A, the Town of Gunther rezone. Is everybody clear? We'll proceed to vote. So, and we'll proceed. And the motion is carried but not unanimous. And now we will take them as they were pulled. Item 12E.
Yeah, you can do that.
I'm going to ask if there's any objection to taking them in the order that they appear on the in the packet, because that's the way they appear on the program once they were pulled out of the consent agenda on the software. So is there any objection to taking 12A first separately? Oh, excuse me. 13A is the one that is up first on the computer. The Town of Gunther rezone, Tim Vreeland for Paul and Carrie Simmons. Supervisor Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm not really asking for, I'm going to ask that this be tabled because I saw a discrepancy in the application, and I'm looking for some clarification from corporate counsel on your in your packet at page 59. I was looking at the if everybody's there. I guess I'll go first to page 57. I'm looking at the flag zone on the lot 1 that we're looking to approve, and my question is to corporate counsel or somebody about the Chapter 17, our zoning ordinance. What is the procedure? Do we allow flag zoning in Marathon County?
I believe this proposed rezone is consistent with our zoning code. I don't know if Lori might be on the WebEx, and she might be able to answer the question from a zoning perspective better than I can, but it is consistent with our zoning code.
And the other part of my concern was that on page 59, question 5, is there any potential for conflict with existing land use in the area? There was no answer. There was no check mark on either no or yes, and that's inconsistent with the other two zoning requests. The applications had that checked, and I feel that the application is incomplete, and I think it should be reviewed by the proper committee and perhaps thrown back to the town of Gunther to have that prepared properly.
I would ask that the department head, Ms. Kimmons, provide any input if she will.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I didn't hear the second question. On the first question, we have a provision for flag lots. This doesn't need that because it meets the road frontage requirements in our code. So, and what was the second question?
The second question was on the questionnaire that is filled out by the township. The question is,
So on the Town of Gunther's resolution, question 5, there is no, it lists NA, but it doesn't have a box checked.
And I can't see that in front of me right now. I apologize. I'm on my phone. So, see.
so it's indicating that the question is there?
The question is there any potential for conflict with existing land uses in the area?
And they have written in NA, but they did not check no or yes on the box.
And we took the NA to mean that there was not potential for conflict with land use. It's not uncommon that occasionally towns will forget to check certain boxes. So,
Okay,
and
Supervisor.
the town, I would also add that the town.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Laurie, please.
I'm sorry. The town gives their guidance or their opinion to the ERC, and then the ERC still makes the decision based on that input. So.
Next, we have Supervisor Stravinsky.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Having been at the ERC meeting when we went over these rezones, the Town of Gunther rezone was approved by the town board and forwarded to the county for our review. Staff reviewed it, and staff made a recommendation that it was in line with the intended land use and future land use, and staff recommended that we approve, and we did. So we brought that forward to the full board for approval based on staff recommendation. So we had no problem with it as the ERC board.
Supervisor Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I still see it as an incomplete application, and I would recommend that this be referred back and have the application correctly prepared.
Supervisor Longenhan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Supervisor.
Thank you. In the spirit of giving this evening, I've decided not to come and give you all my cold that I'm experiencing at the moment. I have no problem pulling this back to ERC and getting additional clarification from the Town of Gunther. Chances are this isn't a timely matter because we're currently in December, and the purpose of this rezone based on the application materials is it looks like it's a family that wants to allow their child to build on this piece of land. So I doubt they're going to be doing a lot of building here in December here, unless they want to get it done by Christmas, of course. So, Mr. Chair, if it would be appropriate, I'd be more than happy to pull this back to ERC and do some additional homework.
With that understanding, it is pulled and referred back to committee. Moving on. Next. Supervisor Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend when Supervisor Longenhan takes it back to committee that the folks take a good look at Chapter 17, especially the first part of it. I've got it right here on my the short title, purpose, and scope of Chapter 17. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have the next item that was pulled from the consent agenda is the WVLS Wisconsin Valley Library Service Board appointment of Kathleen Palmer. What is your pleasure? I have a motion by Supervisor Mask and second by Supervisor Zhang. Any discussion? Supervisor Sherfinsky.
Thank you, Chair. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Palmer. I find her to be very knowledgeable, and very interested in continuing to serve. However, I also find that she is very much in the vein of the American Library Association. And I think that we need to take due consideration of our local constituents rather than having the American Library Association providing direction to all of our library services. So for that reason, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, we will proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried but is not unanimous. Moving on. But before we take up the appointment or reappointments of Reed Rayom and Nathan Taraski, I've asked the Corp Counsel to provide some guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some advice relative to the debate on these nominations. I think it would be wise for the board to focus debate relative to this appointment or these appointments on the individuals who are nominated and their suitability for appointment rather than on specific decisions of the library board as a collective relative to removal or reshelving of particular books. I think I would just urge some caution that we not use commentary that focuses solely on the actions of the library board relative to removal or reclassification. Debate instead, I think, should be focused on the nominee and not the merits of particular book discussion, so that we're focused on the topic at hand, which is the nominee and their suitability for this particular appointment.
Thank you. We'll proceed. We have a motion, Supervisor Zhang, and second by Supervisor Seefeld. Supervisor Sandulski, please.
I would like to make a motion to split the question, get a separate vote for each contendant.
Okay, is there a second? And just a second, I need the clerk to be able to put a motion to divide.
It's not debatable.
Okay, now we need a second on the motion to divide. The motion is made and seconded. This is not debatable, and it requires a simple majority to divide. So we will proceed to vote. Again, the motion before you is to divide and take the two appointments up separately. And we'll proceed. And the motion to divide is agreed to. And now we will take up the two appointments, but allow the clerk to enter the the appointments one at a time. Take up they're in order. So take it up and read. Okay, we have first then. Okay, just getting clarification, since the motion initially was to move both of them to the floor with an approval, both are on the floor, but we will take them up as separate votes. But we don't need an additional motion and second to put them on the floor for debate. And so we are in debate, and the debate is for on the appointment of Reed Rayom to the library board. Supervisor Marash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard from 9 of my constituents, 2 of whom were in favor of Mr. Rayom's reappointment, 7 were not. Therefore, I will be voting no.
Okay. Any other discussion? Supervisor Scherfinski.
I have also had several emails and 3 phone calls. All were unanimously against having Mr. Rayom reappointed, so I will be following the will of my constituents and voting no. Thank you.
Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard from 100% of the people that I was contacted with support his appointment, and it was 1. But I'm not going to base my vote tonight on that 1. I'm going to base it on what I've seen out of Reed. I've had an opportunity to know him and his family for years. He attended school with my son, and throughout his life, he has demonstrated a commitment to this community. He's a Boy Scout, was a Boy Scout. Now we're turning down Boy Scouts because somebody didn't like the way he ran a meeting? Really? I was impressed with Reed throughout the budget process. He approached me on numerous occasions. What information do you need relative to the library budget? What information, are there any issues? He was an advocate for the process and engaged in the process and committed to the betterment of the library system. You aren't going to find better candidates than him. Think long and hard about the message that we're sending to potential applicants for various boards and commissions. Do we take a Boy Scout? Somebody that went to law school, that has an understanding of the law, the Constitution, and other issues that are appropriate for consideration at the library board? I think we do. And I urge you to vote in support of his nomination.
Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only comment I'm going to have, is this. I don't think any other supervisor can characterize what my no or yes vote is, just like we can't characterize what the reasoning is for anyone else's, regardless of what's on the application, how you've interacted with someone, anything. So let's please have, I think, the utmost respect for what someone's yes or no means, because it's theirs. Thank you.
Supervisor Robinson. Supervisor Gisselman, please.
Thank you. I've served with Reed now for a little bit more than a year. Quite honored to serve with him. His dedicated approach to the library and to the people of Marathon County in excellent service, in excellent library service. Sometimes we have to stand tall. Sometimes we have to stand above and seek what is right. Seek what is right according to the United States Constitution, to the Supreme Courts of the United States. We just pledged a little bit ago to honor the Constitution of the United States, and I think that through the the actions of the library board. I think our corp counsel was right in speaking to the individual, and I think the actions of the library board, and with regard to Reed, was according to the laws of this land, and I think that is where we should be parking ourselves this day, and I think that I will gladly support and encourage you to vote for Reed Rayom. I think that what the library board, what Reed has done, what the library board has done, is exemplary service in the service of to the people of Marathon County, specifically through its library services. So I would urge you to vote for Reed Rayom. Thank you.
Supervisor Sherfinsky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to address everyone. We had some words of wisdom by corporate counsel. In my mind, I think some people have taken exception to those words and have introduced issues that he had wished perhaps would not come up. I'm not going to sit by and allow that to happen without some sort of a rebuttal. The library issues over the last 2 years have been extraordinarily divisive to the community. It has been a very small, very vocal, very militant minority. If you look population-wise, if you look statistically, we're looking at, no more than 5% of the population, raised huge objections, and have, with the assent of the American Library Association, have decided that the children's section of a library is the appropriate place for sexually explicit pornographic material. Okay, so in response, a large number of residents of Marathon County repeatedly came before the library board. They were treated disrespectfully on a number of occasions, according to other council members who were there. They were not advocating for said books to be banned. They were not advocating for them to be burned. They were not advocating for them to be thrown out of the library. They were advocating that they be removed from an unsupervised children's section and moved to the adult side of the library. So books that I could not read on the radio without drawing an FCC fine and having a radio station's license placed in jeopardy were placed in the children's section of the library, unattended and unsupervised. Their only request was that they be moved to the adult section. That is what was rejected. So no one was talking about removing things. No one was talking about. So we are talking.
Time out. Stop, please. I will address the point of order. Point of order. We are talking about the appointment, and I would encourage supervisors to focus on the individual and the qualifications of the individual on the library board, and not continue down this road about actions of the library board itself.
Actions of the individuals in question are part of their service. That is what is relevant. So for that reason, and for the reason that the vast majority of the people who have responded to me have asked me to oppose his reappointment, and I will be doing so. Thank you.
Supervisor Loganhan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everybody else has been sharing statistics this evening, so I figured I'd share mine. To the best of my knowledge, I've had one email in support of the applicants, and I was actually at a town board meeting on Tuesday, and I had a constituent of mine approached me and asked me to vote in favor of the individual this evening, so therefore I will be voting in favor of the appointment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Van Cray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not attempting to discount anybody's experiences at past library board meetings under a previous president and vice president. What I do want to commend is Reed's ability to run a meeting when he had to step in as the vice president on a very contentious meeting, packed room, dozens of comments. He did a phenomenal job controlling the room, allowing everybody, no matter what their opinion, to speak. And he did it with grace, and he followed Robert's rules, and he did a great job. So I think if we're looking at his ability to serve as a board member, he's a fantastic board member, and he should be reappointed. Thank you.
Supervisor Zhang, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am expressing my strong support for Reed's reappointment to the library board. I have received over half a dozen phone calls from my own constituents, and 100% of them urged me to back his candidacy. And after careful consideration, I will be voting in support of his reappointment. During my interactions and just listening from my constituents, they have expressed his eagerness to serve as, it's commendable, and his passion for libraries and their roles in the community. His role and the library's role in our community is evident in everything that Reed has done. He goes above and beyond to address the needs of library patrons and works diligently to create an inclusive and welcoming community for anybody who did, regardless of their ideologies or regardless of their beliefs. I also want to highlight that the letters of recommendations and support speaks very highly of Reed and his characters and abilities, and I am strongly encouraging my fellow colleagues to vote in support of reappointing Reed to the library board. Thank you.
Supervisor Krause, please.
Thank you, Chair. I find it difficult when they're talking about particular books for children, because I was an elementary school teacher, and to make decisions or think about this and talk about this and take up so much of our board members' time when we haven't seen these books. I think it would be interesting to have them bring these books here for us to look at, if that's the big issue and the issue of contention. I think we should be supporting
Supervisor Krause,
this
please keep your comments
person.
germane to the qualifications of the candidate, please. Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? We will proceed to vote. Supervisor Dickinson, please. Thank you. We will proceed. And the motion is carried. Moving on to resolutions from the extension. I'm sorry. We have the other library appointment, and that's Nathan Ternetsky. I apologize if I mispronounced Nathan's last name. And again, we're at the same place. We're at a motion that has been made and seconded to approve Nathan. And so we are at debate. Supervisor Zhang, we don't need a motion. And
I just put it in.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, sorry. Never mind. Any debate, any discussion on Nathan's appointment? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. And we'll move on to now resolutions from the Extension Education and Economic Development Committee. Marathon County government's role in providing affordable, high-quality child care. Resolution 55-23. This was a motion was on the floor. And then there was a motion to postpone to a time certain. That time certain has arrived. So this item is also on the floor for debate with a motion to approve as it stands right now. So we are in the debate stage on the motion on the roll providing for Resolution 55-23. Supervisor Seifelt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In lieu of the amendment, I am going to make a motion to it be referred back to the EEED committee for further information that I have received from the chamber, and that we can take a better look at this. So thank you.
Okay, there's a motion to refer back to committee. Is there just a second, I need the clerk to be able to put in the motion. And we have a second by, motion by Supervisor Seifelt and seconded by Supervisor Rosenberg to refer back to committee in light of the additional information that is available. Any discussion? Supervisor Baker, please.
So I am agreed to this. Supervisor Robinson and I talked, and I've also talked to Kelly Borkhardt from Alcaring. So we decided that it would be best if we had some further discussions on this. So I'm supporting this referring back to committee, as long as the rest of the committee members are fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, so any other discussion? Again, the motion before us now is to refer back to committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. We are now down to item D, 16. Back on track. Okay, we're at, what is your pleasure on the Marathon County government's role in housing? Resolution 66-23. Motion by Vice Chair McEwen. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Seifelt. Any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Baker, please. You might be on mute, Supervisor Baker.
Sorry. So this is a resolution that passed.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is a resolution that passed EEDC with amendments, and I am in support of the resolution, so I'll be voting yes.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to Forestry Recreation Committee and the Environmental Resources Committee. Item E, 17, to approve the annual county forest work plan. Resolution 67-23. Motion by Supervisor Drabeck and second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? Supervisor Sandusky.
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment to remove the C1 in the land and equipment. It says negotiate the purchase of additional lands to enter the county forest that will improve blocking, facilitate management, and aligns with the Marathon County strategic and County Forest Comprehensive Plan land use. I know I spoke about this before, and as you recall, if you look on the county website, the county currently owns over 30,000 acres in the county forest unit, and also another 3,000 in the county parks. So I want to make amendment to take that portion off of the resolution 60s. Take the C1 off of the resolution 6723.
I think a point of clarification, you're trying to take C1 out of the work plan itself and not out of the resolution, correct?
Yeah, out of the, yep.
So the motion is to take item C1 out of the work plan itself and not out of the resolution. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? Seeing none, the motion dies due to.
Is it on Rosenberg? Just did it.
Oh,
No, this is.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Go ahead.
We're not seeing, or at least I am not seeing any of this reflected on open meetings. So if I so wanted to actually make a second, I could not have. So we seem to have consistent problems with open meetings not showing up and not reflecting properly and promptly.
We will have the clerk type in the amendment. Every time there's an amendment, it does take time for the clerk to type it in. Can you make the motion by Supervisor Sandusky? There we go. I apologize. We are looking for a second for Supervisor Sandusky's amendment to remove C1 from the work plan. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Baker. Is there any discussion? And I would like to also invite the forester to explain to the county board the rationale behind, and so we have Mr. Loveland, the county forester, unless there's objection, I would like to have the forester explain the rationale in the work plan for item C1. Is there objection? Okay, without objection, I'd ask the forester if he's available.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me? This is Tom.
Yes, we can. Now I can hear you. So go ahead.
Okay, so the land acquisition has been part of the county forest work plan for over 30 years. We only look at lands that abut county forest property that block us in for better administration. And we do forestry, watershed management, wildlife management on these lands. And we're available to apply for the Nelson Stewardship Funding that allows for 50% of the cost of purchases of land, which is matched with 50% of funds from our land segregated account. We only deal with willing sellers, and we go to the towns to receive approval from the towns for these purchases.
Thank you for that clarification. So in essence, it's only land that's acquired during that is attached to our current county forests. It's only willing sellers that agree to or want to sell to the county, and it's based on the valuation. And then the third step is the township that the land is being acquired from or in has to agree to it. And Corp Counsel has another point of clarification.
And just an additional point is any acquisition of land, including forest land, does have to be approved separately by the board.
And Supervisor Longenon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting this amendment. I want to say a couple things. The first thing is that this plan came out of Forestry and Rec Committee as well as the Environmental Resources Committee. To the best of my knowledge, it was unanimous support out of both committees. And I want to highlight what I said during the comp plan discussions. I don't recall exactly how long ago, but whenever the county is interested in buying land, that decision still has to come in front of this board. If there was ever a situation where a landowner wanted to see their land conserved and they went to the county and the county said, you know what, we're not interested in it, and then that land falls into a state of slow decay, I don't think we did our jobs right. Mr. Chair, I would also like to highlight that I don't think that this amendment is in order with the plan, because the way that it reads right now, you would delete C1 and it would start with C2. I don't think that the plan reads well either. That's a process thing, but I still think that matters. So, like I said, I'm not going to belabor the point. Everybody knows how I feel about this issue. The county is not a land baron. I will say that until I'm blue in the face, because I firmly believe that. Mr. Chair, I'd urge my colleagues not to support this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Before you is a motion to amend the actual forestry work plan to remove section C1 from that work plan. Is everybody clear what they're voting on? They're voting on the amendment. Any questions on what you're voting on? A no vote will defeat the motion to amend. A yes vote will support the motion to amend. We'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is defeated. Now back to the motion as originally. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote on the approval of the annual county forest work plan. And we'll proceed. The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item E18, an application for county forest acreage share loan payment. Resolution 68-23. Motion by Supervisor Mask, a second by Supervisor Seefeld. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the County Fish and Game Projects, Resolution 71-23. What is your pleasure? E19. Motion by Supervisor Shafinsky, second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. The motion is carried and is unanimous. Moving on to item E20, amending the Marathon County Forest Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Resolution 72-23. Motion by Vice Chair McEwen and second by Supervisor Shafinsky. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. Moving on, Health and Human Services Committee, a cooperation agreement for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG BG Program, Resolution 73-23, item F22. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Cavelli, second by Supervisor Van Cray. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, amending the 2024 budget resolution language pursuant to the Department of Revenue's request. Resolution 74-23. Motion by Supervisor Lamont and seconded by Supervisor Rosenberg. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. The motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Moving on, Health and Human Services Committee, the Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, approving an amendment to the 2023 and 2024 budget, accepting the Wisconsin-led Safe Homes Program grant. Resolution 75-23, item H23. Supervisor Drabek with a motion, Supervisor Arstead with a second. Any discussion? We will proceed. What's that? Two-thirds, correct. This does require a two-thirds majority. We will proceed. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. And we're now down to items I, Public Safety Committee and Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee. Item I-24, resolution regarding advancement of the Regional Forensic Science Center project. Resolution 76-23. Item I-24, what is your pleasure? Supervisor Mask with a motion, Supervisor Robinson with a second. Vice Chair McEwen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution is requesting the board to authorize the morgue task force to utilize $4,230,000 of the social improvement fund balance to construct the Regional Forensic Science Center. The additional $4,230,000 is needed to receive $7 million of matching funds from the State of Wisconsin Building Commission as part of the state budget. The current construction estimate for the Regional Forensic Science Center is $14,800,000. The county needs to raise the other $7.8 million in order to secure those funds from the state. The representatives of the morgue task force and staff have continued to seek outside funding through grants and securing approximately $1,170,000 of funds from additional funding sources as of December 1st. North Central Technical College has expressed $400,000 in funding for IT equipment. There is numerous other grants and applications out there at this time that we haven't heard from yet. Staff are directed to engage the State of Wisconsin Commission of Building to authorize the disbursements of the $7 million for this project. With the approval of this resolution, staff will be directed to release requests for bids for construction in late January, early February of 2024, not to exceed the $14,800,000. The morgue task force and the staff will continue to fundraise to reimburse the special improvement funds as much as possible. So I'm asking the board to again approve the Regional Forensic Science Center. With this resolution, you're giving the staff the ability to build the Forensic Science Center, which will be on the grounds of the North Central Technical College. Thank you.
Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just had one. I've been thinking about it over the week because we had public safety, and I had one question for Administrator Leonard. It's kind of like a simple yes or no question because I look at things and we keep coming back and getting more, asking for more money from the county. So is this going to be a guarantee? The last asking for money through the county, the actual county funding. I understand we'll have to get approval for these other grants, but I mean, are we going to keep asking the county for more and more money, or is this the final time for the actual county? As far as the county funds, is the rest going to be through the like the federal and the state grants? Is that a yes or no on that one?
I don't know that I ever answer a question yes or no. I do not envision the county having to expend additional resources beyond the initial request. As the vice chair indicated, I fully anticipate fundraising to continue and additional support to come in. But like I said before, I just told my daughter yesterday, I generally don't like using the words always or never. So with that, I mean, I think the intent clearly is to continue that fundraising and bring that number down. And staff have done a lot, as was discussed at Public Safety, to mitigate potential cost increases. So I'm confident that we won't be back here asking for that.
Supervisor Oberbeck, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because of my profession, it's come to my attention as far as the bidding process that this is going through. It's my understanding that there's going to be a construction manager on the project. Is there anyone who can explain that? I know there's additional costs that sometimes come with that, but, and they can be fairly substantial.
The deputy administrator is in charge of buildings and maintenance, and with him, Troy also.
So if I understand your question, how does the process work for the bids through the construction manager?
Yes, just an explanation. Are they going to be separate prime contractors? Are they going to be a GC plus a construction manager? Or how is that going to be done? Just as far as the amount of money that's being devoted to that. I know the construction manager has went through a selection process right now, or is going through that. And that has come through the grapevine to me as far as what that entails.
Sure. Excuse me, that's correct. And I'll give it my best shot. And Troy Torgerson's one of our project planners and the department lead on this project. But my understanding of the process with a construction manager in place is that the construction manager at risk means that they have skin in the game. There are areas of a project where they might do self-directed work, but they're also a part of that the bidding process. So the bids that go out for each area of the work come through them, but via the county. So we have eyes on all of the bids. This gets back to some of the questions about where do costs come in. So if you were to put out a bid for any piece of the project and things came back higher than expected, let's say all the responses were higher, we've already got plans for value engineering in terms of cutting things back, or you could look at alternative approaches and materials, or you could even revise the scope of what you were looking to do and then reissue the bid, to get back to where you're looking at in terms of cost. But in terms of the overall process, we will be part and parcel of seeing each bid come through and inform that process along with the construction manager. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well, in some cases, what we've seen is construction managers, and if they're somewhat performing a lot of general work, there's somewhat duplications there. And just wondering if that, if that's part of the process to look at the efficiencies there and look at costs.
Yes, that is part of the process. We anticipate 15 to 20 bid packages coming out. Your reference to the prime contractors, mechanical, electrical, plumbing will be part of that. The construction manager is allowed to self-perform. However, their bids have to come in before everybody else's. They come into our attention. We read them off and go through them. We look at that very stringently and make sure that there's no duplication of effort, because we already have our project manager for them and we have a site superintendent, so that won't be something that will be duplicated. Put across the board fairly in a general trades package, and then all the rest of the packages, what you get: mechanical, electrical, plumbing, specialties. We've got furniture, fixtures, and equipment that's coming in. We're getting prices on everything that you would look at through there. They all come in through Marathon County through our eyes. Our department reviews them with the project, with the construction manager, and we go through that. If that answers that question, if that's the direction that you were looking for. But we're going to see all those read through that process right down to, painting, floor finishes, whatever you'd like to see in there. But we're going to have probably 15 to 20 would be my estimation right now. And we're in the process of defining those to make sure that we make it equal, so that smaller contractors that maybe only do concrete or maybe only do, curb and gutter or something along those lines, they're going to have that opportunity through there, so we keep it broken out evenly across the board.
Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is a $2 million grant. It's a congressionally directed spending grant that's pending, and I'm not going to try to figure out how the federal government's going to get a budget. However, that grant is still there, and from what the Wisconsin Counties Association representative has been in contact with Senator Baldwin's office, and he's quite confident that this grant can be approved whether they do a long-term budget or not. But we're not, it's not guaranteed, but it's still there, and that money would be put towards that, towards the Forensic Science Center. So thank you.
I'd also invite Troy Torgerson to address the cost, total overall cost of the project, please.
Sure. Part of the AIA document that we used for this process, the A133-2019 agreement between owner and construction manager at risk, has a paragraph, a series of paragraphs we reviewed with Corporation Counsel that puts together a guaranteed maximum price. So once we go through all this, review everything, that price that we agreed upon, to Chris's statement, they have skin in the game, that's it. It doesn't go up any higher than that after that's agreed upon. The $14.8 million we had already seen come through in the second estimate. The price has already driven itself down. The exact dollar amount I won't be able to tell you off the top of my head, but on that day that we agree upon all of those contracts, we sign all that, there's a guaranteed maximum price. I've spent a good day and a half going through that with Corporation Counsel, so that's going to determine where that price comes in and stays at for the project.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Stravinsky withdrew his question. Okay, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Thank you. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to item I-25, authorizing the Sheriff's Office participation in the Department of Natural Resources Boat Enforcement Patrol Grant Program, Resolution 77-23. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Shafinsky and seconded by Supervisor Robinson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, and it is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, Environmental Resources Committee, and the Extension, Education, Economic Development Committee, a consideration of an initial resolution regarding the solid waste disposal revenue bond financing for Wisconsin RNG VDG LLC Renewable Natural Gas Production Plant Project. Information with respect to the job impact and the project will be available at the time of the consideration of the initial resolution. Resolution 78-23. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and second by Supervisor Shafinsky. Any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Boots.
Just a question. Did anyone approach the Village of Maine and their thoughts on this? I just was wondering, I guess.
From my understanding is, first off, the company has reached out to the Village of Maine and had discussions with them. The chairman or the village president was at the last ERC meeting, so yes, they have been informed, and at least part of the discussions with the developer.
Were they opposed? Were they for it? Did they say anything as where they stood?
They haven't stated, and as I understand, in their zoning ordinance, they do not have an animal waste ordinance in their zoning code, and so they don't have the ability to control it. Supervisor Langenhan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to give some background on this issue because there was some extensive discussion at the Environmental Resources Committee on this project. We actually had, I think, 3 different specialists come in from the Department of Natural Resources, 2 of them virtually and 1 in person, to talk about CAFO licensing as well as manure digester projects. And I will just say generally that it doesn't appear to be one single expert in manure digesting out there beyond the individuals that came and speak to us at the board meeting a couple months ago. So basically what I'm trying to say by that is that a lot of these issues, especially when it comes to water, which was a chief concern of mine, are going to boil down to the project specs themselves. And then I just wanted to also add, Mr. Chair, that you are correct that when the Village of Maine incorporated, when they were previously a town, they were under the county's animal waste ordinance. They would have had to have adopted a resolution or to remain under it, but they did not do that during or after the incorporation process. I'm unsure of the timeline there. One more part I just want to discuss briefly here is that this did pass out of the Environmental Resources Committee with unanimous support. I do just want to highlight that when we had our discussions, I want to thank the committee for being focused on the environmental impact of such a project, because while we can't step in and say that this project can't specifically happen, there are still concerns that the county might have with the project going on, within its jurisdiction. And at least me personally, and I don't want to speak on behalf of my fellow committee members, if they wish to speak tonight, they certainly can. I'd welcome them to. But I do truly believe that this project is going to happen no matter what, whether or not the county gets involved in the conduit bonding process here tonight or if they don't. What I really believe is important is that if we do choose to get into the process, we have a chance to help protect the environment in Marathon County. Because as part of getting the conduit bonding, we can start to have discussions with that business to say, what are you willing to do to protect the environment? I don't know what that looks like yet. There would have to be negotiations, but sitting on our hands and doing nothing isn't going to protect our residents. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And one of the things, again, this initial resolution does not bind the county to anything further than just having additional negotiations and discussions with the company about what potential requirements the county may have when it goes forward. It's an initial resolution that authorizes the company to reimburse expenses should they incur any expenses on this project if it later goes to bonding. So again, it allows us to negotiate with the company, and as the chair of the ERC committee clearly pointed out, it allows us to potentially put into place some protections that we might not be able to put in if we're not part of the discussion. Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm not in favor of this. I don't see it as a big benefit to the majority of the county. Like say our internet fiber, we did that similar bonding for that, and that had a benefit to quite a bit of the county. And I look at this, it's going to benefit a small portion, small amount of people, and even the gases aren't even going to stay within the county. They're going to be shipped out to California and other states, so we aren't even going to get a benefit from that. And so, yeah, I won't support this. Thank you.
Supervisor Sherfinsky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Chairman Langenhan of the ERC mentioned, and I'd like to also address one of the issues from an environmental perspective that came up for a lot of consideration was the issue of water. Water is at a premium in that part of the county and in the western part of the county. With all of the discussions that were ongoing and presentations from the DNR and from others, including the company involved, it appears that moving forward with this digester project does not negatively impact the water situation. It does not increase the water usage. It does not lessen the water usage. It basically remains neutral. So with that was one of the primary environmental issues that we specifically were able to get some good detail on. The other thing is, as Chairman Gibbs alluded to, is that this doesn't bind us to anything, but it gives us a seat at the table to help negotiate additional concessions that might otherwise not be possible. And the company involved that wants to do the digester, they have financial reasons and financial incentives to try and work through the county. It's not going to be county money, but they're working through us and with us, and because we bring that value to the table, we have the ability to negotiate with them. And that allows us to perhaps negotiate environmental protections that might not otherwise be involved in the project. So I will certainly be supporting.
Supervisor Marash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. So I've heard a couple times just in the last couple minutes about having some kind of environmental protections that the county could have influence over if we were to go forward. Can I get some more specifics on what kind of protections those would be?
Well, some of the things that were discussed at the ERC committee was potentially putting in monitoring wells, or at least having a discussion with the company as to whether or not they would be willing to put in monitoring wells. Understanding this is a facility that is built to specs by the state oversight as far as storage of manure and nutrients. And so one of the questions that was raised whenever you have a storage facility, is there the potential for leakage? And so one of the questions, or at least one of the discussion points, was there might be a possibility of having discussions about putting in monitoring wells around the facility to ensure that there isn't leakage or leakage from the storage facility. So that was one of the main discussion points, or potential protections that could be put in place. Supervisor Seibert, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. You know, I think this is a step forward. Our manure problem in Marathon County hasn't gone forward in a lot of years. If you look at, it takes 80 people to make the waste of one cow, and that's conservative. So 100 cow dairy is making the waste of 8,000 people. Think about that. Think how many cows are in Marathon County. Towns have to build billion-dollar wastewater treatment plants. And it might not be perfect. The first go around might not be perfect, but it'll get better. And it's in the right direction. And this is the second plant going up. There's one going up in the Unity area, a huge methane digester that's going to make natural gas. So it's a step forward. Vote yes. Thank you.
Just so everyone's know, in the ERC committee, the administrator had brought forward that Langlade County has just approved a digester project up there, one of their large dairies, and the company that is proceeding with that project is also a company that has approached the county. It's not this company, but has also approached the county on another potential farm and another potential project. Supervisor Langenhahn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo what you previously said. I think that a lot of the discussions have centered on water. The Vandergeest Dairy currently has 18 high-capacity wells for their operation, and that's because if you want to, have a dairy farm, you need water. You need it. That's, of course, monitored by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And I also want to bring up and highlight what the chair previously said about the DNR also monitoring these sites. There might be a situation where once information is released more specifically about the specs of those projects, we may not require any concessions from them if the county determines that there will be zero impact on the water. We may not require any concessions in that specific case for water. But like what has been previously mentioned, if you don't support the resolution, or more specifically, if the resolution does not pass, you don't even get to have those discussions. That gives me a lot of heartburn. I think that this is a clear yes vote. I would urge you all to support it as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we will proceed. And the motion is carried. It is not unanimous, but it is approved. Moving on to miscellaneous business, announcements and/or requests. The clerk needs signatures from Extension Education Economic Development Committee, HR Finance and Property Committee, Environmental Resources Committee, Forestry and Rec Committee, Health and Human Services Committee, Public Safety Committee. Everyone has multiple resolutions and/or to sign. I also would like to express to everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, as this is the last meeting before the Christmas holidays. And the clerk also has an additional announcement, please.
I am a little surprised by the lack of paperwork I've gotten for the election in April. Just a reminder that next Friday, the 22nd, is the deadline if you are not planning to run again. I must have your non-candidacy paper by next Friday at 4:30. If you do not turn that in and then do not submit nomination signatures, I am forced to hold that nominating period open for an additional 5 days, and that makes a lot more work for me. So if you are not planning to run, please get me that paper by next Friday afternoon. Reminder, nomination signatures, if you are going to run, January 2nd is the deadline for that. The courthouse is not open on January 2nd. So I will have my phone number posted on the door of the courthouse and we'll meet you here. I only live a few blocks away. So if you bring them on January 2nd, you'll just have to wait for me to get over here. If possible, if you can get them in by that Friday before the new year, the 29th, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Also, just another announcement, we have set up a tour to review the updates. One of the major projects that we had was updating the technology in the courtrooms to allow virtual and additional court proceedings to take place. That actually is going to make the efficiency in the court system a lot better and potentially save also money having individuals not have to travel to testify. And so that is set up for immediately following this meeting. So if you are so inclined, and it also has been agendized as there may be a quorum of any of the subcommittees and or the board, so there is no problem with a walking quorum. And so, and we also have the tour of the Lakeview Conference Center on Lakeview Drive also. So, and that, one of the things that I have had the opportunity to review and view that Lakeview Conference Center, and I would highly encourage each and every one of you to take the time to review that, because it is part of the overall plan of reducing the footprint that the county has, and it provides a great opportunity and conference space for the use in the community and for the county. So I would encourage everybody to at least take part of that. Anything else? Any other announcements and or requests?
Kurt, what entrance do we go in on Lakeview Drive?
The administrators, the tour guide.
Yeah, that's right. If you just head right up Lakeview Drive, you'll see the lights on. It's enter the parking lot right off of Lakeview Drive. You don't need to go to the right onto Marshall. So, sounds good. Lakeview Drive. Come up Lakeview Drive. Everyone's not looking at me like they know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about it after the meeting,
All right.
after you adjourn. We'll make sure no one gets lost.
We'll make sure that everybody has directions to where it is.
Upstairs first.
But before everybody goes, please sign the resolution so we get all the resolutions signed. Thank you. We need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Gonnering and seconded by Supervisor Shavinsky. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And again, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.